Okay, so we just did this line, and we had this range, and then I forget if I mentioned, but we select it. Okay. Now, next thing is we're going to autofill the selection run one row down. Now, what does that mean? That means something like this. Suppose I have a sheet that has two numbers, 3, or let's say, no, sorry, 4 numbers, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I have a formula here equals this cell plus this cell, enter. Okay? So I get that 8. Now what happens if I drag this down? That's called autofilling, and that gives me this formula. Sorry, up here I have what? E11 and F11, but here I've now autofilled it. I have E12 and F12. That's called autofill. So let's try and see if we can make a just a macro that will just do this one part. So let's take this line. Well, I guess I need here. Let me copy it from here. So I needed this one, but I need this. So let me make a new macro first of all. So I'll call it sub test autofill. Okay, like that. And let's just basically use what we have already. So let me try, but I'll do it in a different sheet. Let's try, what was the name of that sheet? Oh, sheet 2. We'll change it to sheet 2. Is that capital sheet? And let's do dot activate, so we get to make sure that we're in that sheet, and then just copy basically that code here. What's the whole line? Yeah. So just copy from here to here. Now this is width. I wonder if I'm in the width. Okay. So anyway, see if this works. But let me do it the way they did it. And then I can do the same thing here. Actually, this is usually supposed to be a bit indented. I'll do that too. And I need end width. Okay, now, but I don't have a value for next row, so I'll create next row. And then I'll give it a value. this is okay, this makes sense. And we're talking about, so we have this. Now let's see what we have here. So let's see what happens if I just stop here. So the way that you, those of you know Visual Basic know that you can put it, just click over here, and that will cause the code to stop when it gets to this line, so it won't run this line. You could also just type in stop here, and that should do the same thing, but let's just do it this way. Okay, so now if I run this, let's see what happens. Okay, so it went to that line. That's what the yellow means there. It went as far as that line, but it won't let me look at it. Okay, so I have to stop the code. Oh, one more thing. I don't know. I didn't. Some of you may not be able to see what I was doing before. So maybe I should set it up like this. To run the code, I clicked this, and now to stop it, I click this. Okay, so I stopped it there. Now I should be able to see what I'm doing. So yeah, it selected that range. So is that right? Yeah, it was just one, it was only one row, right? This row and this row are the same, so it's only one row, right? If I had done this, gotten rid of the one rather, it would have been more than one row. But anyway, right? Because if I got rid of that, then it would go from one row up to one row down, and from 11 to 19. Did that work? Yeah, I guess this is about 11 to 19. Okay, so that's how that part works. Now let's put some formulas in here, but I'm not going to select so many cells because then I have to type in too many formulas. So let me change it. Let me change this to 12. So now I only need 2. First of all, I changed this in the wrong place. I don't want to change this code. I want to change this code. And let me stop. Let me go back to here and put in some numbers over here. Now I forget what I just did. Nope. Let me run it again. Okay, so I want the numbers to be here. And then I want the formula to be in the next two cells. So I'll put plus here, adding these two, and times here, multiplying these two. Okay, now I had to change both of these, right? This should be 11 and 12. This should also be 11 and 12. Okay, so he says that autofill the selection one row down. The addresses used by the formula automatically adjust so that they point to the new formula, right? So in other words, it's going to copy it down just the way we saw before. So we're going to run this code. And he says, notice that for the autofill, it goes to write the autofill properly, to get it to do what we want. This one has to be next row minus 1, so that's our beginning row. And this one is just next row. So that's remember the range takes 2 arguments, the beginning cell and the end cell. So the end cell is the next row down. And of course 1 cell over. Well, here it's 7 cells over, but in mine it's 1 cell over. So let's look at that. in mind. So same thing, but I'm just using 11 and 12. So next row minus 1, next row minus 1, that's selecting. But when you're doing the autofill, it has to be next row minus 1 to next row. Okay, so let's try it out. I'm not going to put a break here, like before I had a break here. I'm not going to do that. Just click or click it again. So I'm just going to run it, and supposedly it's done. So let's see if it was done. Yeah. So it copied the formulas down to here and here. Okay? This is, yeah, okay. So what did I do? So first I had that. Then I put in the formulas here. Then I ran that little macro or a little sub-procedure, and it did that. Okay, so that's how that works. So he says, he just sort of reiterates the idea that you have to go from the beginning where you're copying the data from and to the row where you want it to go, or the area where you want it to go. And he says, even calls it a peculiarity of the autofill method. So this is an autofill method, or it's like it's an autofill function or method. Method, usually we call something a method when it's associated with some object, and this is associated with this object, our current selection. Then we call it a method instead of a function or a sub-procedure. Okay, so it's a minor peculiarity of the autofill method that the destination range must include the source range. So he's just saying that destination doesn't look right, because we're calling it destination. The destination is not the source, not the beginning range. It's just the destination is not here. The destination is here when we autofill. But he said you have to include it as well. In this case, the source range is next row minus 1, and the range that is to be autofilled is next row. But that destination range is specified in the VBA statement must also include the source range. So they call it destination, but maybe they shouldn't have called it destination, because it includes the source as well. Okay, let's stop here.